My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 62 years old, a retired high school history teacher, and a widower. I live in a modest house on the edge of Fort Collins, Colorado. It isn't much, just a two-bedroom home with peeling paint on the back porch and a garden I tend with more devotion than skill. But it's mine. Paid off. Quiet. Steady. After decades of living for others, I've come to value steady above all else. For 35 years, I taught kids about the Revolutionary War, the Constitution, and the idea that history doesn't just live in books, it breathes through every choice we make. My students used to roll their eyes when I said that, but I meant it. I still do. Because history is nothing more than people forgetting the sacrifices that came before them. I raised my son, Michael, mostly on my own. My wife, Anna, passed away when Michael was only 9. Cancer. Quick and cruel. One day she was still tucking him into bed, and a few months later I was standing in a quiet hospital room, holding his little hand, telling him she wasn't coming back. That night, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just a father anymore. I became everything. Cook, teacher, chauffeur, nurse, counselor, breadwinner. I was all of it even when I was breaking inside. From that moment on, every choice I made circled back to Michael. When he needed braces, I picked up summer tutoring gigs. When he begged to join travel soccer, I coached part-time at the YMCA to cover the fees. When it came time for college, I emptied nearly all of Anna's small life insurance payout and took on loans in my own name just to make sure he could attend the university he wanted. I never kept score. That's what parents are supposed to do, give even when it hurts. At least, that's what I told myself for years. Michael grew into a bright, ambitious man. He studied business, interned with firms in Denver, and eventually landed a good job in finance. He liked expensive watches, tailored suits, and talking about stocks in a way that made me feel like I was from another planet. Still, I was proud. I thought I'd done something right. A few months ago, he called me, voice bubbling with excitement. He'd proposed to his girlfriend, Claire. I'd only met her twice, once at a rushed brunch, once at a Christmas dinner where she spent most of the evening on her phone. She came from a wealthy family, the kind that hosted charity galas and summered in Aspen. Out of my league, out of my world. But Michael was happy, so I tried to be happy too. He talked about the wedding plans, the grand engagement party they wanted to host in Aspen, the kind of event where her family's business partners could network. His words, not mine. He mentioned the venue fees, the catering deposits, the flowers that cost more than my first car. I didn't blink. I told him I would help however I could. I had been saving quietly for years, not just for my retirement, but for moments like this. I wanted to give him the security I never had. That night, I went online and began arranging to transfer $40,000 from my savings into a joint account we'd set up for wedding expenses. It wasn't easy money. It was scraped together over decades. Side hustles, delayed repairs, vacations I never took. Every dollar carried a memory of something I had given up. Still, I pressed forward. Because that's what I had always done. Then, last Tuesday morning, everything changed. I woke up early as I usually do, made myself a pot of black coffee, and sat by the window overlooking the yard. The sun was just stretching over the rooftops when I opened my laptop to check emails. Bills, a coupon for oil changes, a reminder from my doctor. Then I saw it. The subject line was simple. Michael Reed. No greeting, no hint of excitement. Just his name. I smiled as I clicked it, thinking maybe it was a quick update about the party or a thank you for the money I'd promised. But as the words filled the screen, my smile slipped away. Dad? It began. Not, hey Dad, or, love you Dad. Just, Dad. Like a label. Like a duty. He wrote that he and Claire had finalized the guest list for the Aspen engagement party. After careful thought, they had decided it was best if I didn't attend. He said the event would be filled with Claire's family, business contacts, and a certain kind of crowd. He worried that I might feel out of place. Instead, he said, they had arranged for me to watch comfortably from home via a private livestream link. He even added a line at the end that nearly split me in half. Should be just like being there. I sat there staring at the screen, my coffee growing cold. The house felt impossibly quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on your chest. My son, the boy I raised alone, the man I sacrificed everything for, didn't want me in the room for the biggest moment of his life. Not because he couldn't afford it. Not because there wasn't space. But because I didn't fit the image. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. My hands didn't even tremble. Something inside me just shifted. Like a fault line cracking beneath the surface. The world hadn't exploded, but it would never look the same again. I replied with 4 words. Just 4. Sure. Have a great time. No anger, no pleading. Just a quiet retreat. And in that silence, I knew something important. My days of sacrificing without question were over. I closed the laptop, poured out the cold coffee, and dressed for my morning walk like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. That was the day I stopped being just a father. That was the day I began to reclaim myself. The next morning, the email still sat heavy in my inbox. I reread it once, twice, maybe 3 times, as though the words might change if I stared long enough. They didn't. There's a certain kind of sting that doesn't come from anger but from recognition. Recognition that you've been useful, not loved. That the years of sacrifice were a one-way street. That the person you raised sees you not as family but as an accessory, optional, replaceable. I went through the motions that morning, eggs on the skillet, a short walk around the block, pruning dead leaves in the garden. Everything felt the same, yet different, as if the air itself carried a new weight. By noon, I'd made my decision. I grabbed my jacket and drove to the bank, a quiet branch a few streets down from Maine. The manager there, a kind man named Daniel, had helped me with my accounts for years. He greeted me by name the moment I walked in. "Mr. Reed. Haven't seen you in a while. What can we do for you today?" I sat down across from him, folded my hands, and took a breath. "I need to cancel a scheduled transfer." His eyebrows lifted. "Oh, the $40,000 one." "Yes," I said, my voice calm. Too calm. He hesitated. "It hasn't processed yet, so you're just in time." "Can I ask why?" "The circumstances have changed," I replied. I didn't offer more. I didn't need to. Daniel searched my face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I'll take care of it. No penalties since it was pending." He typed quickly, his fingers clicking against the keys. "The funds remain in your savings account." I signed the necessary forms, stood up, and thanked him. He gave me a polite smile, but I caught the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Maybe even concern. I walked out without looking back. The autumn air hit me as I stepped outside, brisk, sharp, alive. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet surge of control. Not anger. Not revenge, exactly. But something close. By the time I returned home, my phone had lit up with 3 missed calls from Michael. Then 5. Then 9. I set it on the counter and didn't answer. That evening, as the sky turned lavender and the porch light clicked on, I poured myself a glass of bourbon and sat on the back steps. The neighborhood was still, kids had finished their games, dogs curled on porches, the world settling into its nightly rhythm. My phone buzzed again. This time I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I finally listened. Michael's voice came through, tight and panicked. "Dad, hey, listen, we've got a problem. The venue called. The transfer didn't go through. We need that money. The payment deadline is tomorrow, and if we miss it, we lose the deposit. Call me back, okay? Please." I sipped my drink. The bourbon burned on its way down, but it was a good burn. The kind that reminded me I was still here. By the time I went to bed, there were 6 more messages. Each one more frantic than the last. The next morning, I woke to a phone buzzing like a hive of bees. Michael again. Then Claire. Then even a number I didn't recognize, which I suspected was her father. I ignored them all. Instead, I brewed coffee and settled at the kitchen table with the newspaper, pretending life was perfectly ordinary. But inside, I felt something unraveling and knitting back together in a new form. Around mid-morning, the landline rang, something so rare these days I almost didn't recognize the sound. Against my better judgment, I picked it up. "Dad!" Michael's voice exploded through the receiver. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" I've been busy, I said evenly. Busy? Are you kidding me? The transfer didn't go through, and we're about to lose the venue. The caterer's threatening to back out too. What's going on? The circumstances changed, I said quietly, echoing my words from the bank. What does that even mean? Dad, this isn't funny. We're counting on you. There was that word. Counting. Not depending. Not valuing. Counting. Like dollars in a ledger. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Michael, I was told I wouldn't be attending. That my presence wasn't wanted. There was a pause. A long one. Then he sighed heavily, frustration bleeding through the line. It's not about you. It's about the guest list, about appearances. You don't understand the circles Claire's family moves in. This isn't personal. Not personal, I repeated. My chest tightened, but not with sadness. With clarity. You're right, Michael. It's not personal. It's business. And I don't do business with people who don't want me around. Dad, I hung up. The silence that followed was deafening, but it was also liberating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bending, apologizing, or making myself smaller. That afternoon, I went about my day as if nothing had happened. I picked up groceries. I read a few chapters of a novel that had been gathering dust on the shelf. I even stopped by the library to volunteer, helping a group of kids with their history projects. One of the boys, maybe 12, grinned up at me as he pieced together a poster board. Mr. Reed, did you really used to teach? You explain stuff better than Google. I laughed, a genuine laugh I hadn't felt in days. Yes, I really did. And thank you. That means more than you know. That night, the messages took a new tone. Dad, you're being unreasonable. Claire's parents are furious. You're embarrassing me. Why are you doing this? Haven't you always said you'd support me no matter what? Don't ruin this for me. I set the phone face down on the counter. I poured another drink. And I realized something monumental. I didn't feel guilty. For 62 years, guilt had been my shadow. Guilt when I couldn't give Anna more time. Guilt when I missed Michael's games because of work. Guilt every time I spent $1 on myself instead of saving it for him. But now, in this stillness, I felt something new. Freedom. I went to bed with that thought. And for the first time in decades, I slept through the night. It was 2 days after the phone call when the knock came. Not a polite knock, not the kind neighbors use when they're dropping off a pie. This was heavy, impatient, a demand more than a request. I didn't move right away. I let it echo through the house, bouncing off the walls I'd painted myself years ago, walls that had seen joy, grief, and everything in between. I took my time setting down the coffee mug, sliding the paper aside, and walking to the door. When I opened it, Michael stood there. His tie was loosened, his face flushed, hair slightly disheveled in a way that told me he hadn't slept much. He looked older than 34 in that moment, but also somehow younger, like the boy who used to throw tantrums when he didn't get what he wanted. Dad. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His cologne hit me first, sharp and expensive. He paced the living room, agitated. You're really going to do this? He demanded. Do what? I asked calmly, shutting the door behind him. Cancel the money. After everything I told you. After everything we've planned. You're just going to what? Sit back and watch me lose everything? I studied him. His voice cracked slightly on everything, and I wondered if he even knew what that word meant. I'm not watching you lose everything, I said softly. I'm watching you value appearances over your father. He stopped pacing. His jaw tightened. This isn't about appearances. It's about survival. You don't understand what it's like trying to build a life with someone whose family has expectations. Claire's parents, I cut in. That's all I've heard from you. Not once have you asked how I felt when you sent that email. Not once have you acknowledged what it means to tell your own father he's not welcome at your wedding. He winced just for a second. Then he shook it off. It's complicated. You wouldn't get it. Try me. Silence stretched between us. He sat down finally, perching on the edge of the armchair like he didn't belong there. Maybe he didn't anymore. Claire's family thinks you're too simple, he muttered. They run in circles with politicians, CEOs, People who matter. They think you'd embarrass me. The words stung, but they also clarified something I hadn't wanted to face. This wasn't just about them. It was about him. My son, the boy I raised, agreed. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. My voice was steady, almost quiet. So let me understand. The man who worked double shifts so you could have cleats for every season. The man who put you through college when I barely had 2 nickels left. The man who buried his wife and still kept the house standing for you. That man is too simple. His face flushed red. Don't twist it like that. I'm not twisting, I said. I'm remembering. Michael raked a hand through his hair, standing up again. This isn't about love, Dad. It's about reality. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. Can't you just swallow your pride for once? For me. I let the words settle. I'd swallowed my pride for him every day of his life. No, I said finally. The word landed heavy. His eyes widened, like he couldn't believe I'd actually said it. No, he repeated, his voice almost breaking. No, I stood too, facing him. You told me I wasn't wanted. You made a choice. Now I've made mine. There will be no transfer. There will be no check. And there will be no father at your wedding. He stared at me, breathing hard, his fists clenched. For a moment, I thought he might actually shout, maybe even slam a hand against the wall. But then his expression shifted, panic flashing into calculation. Claire's parents will think I failed, he said desperately. They'll think I can't handle responsibility. Do you want that? Do you want your son to look weak? I don't care what they think, I replied. My voice was firm, final. And if you cared about me, neither would you. The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, the faint hum of the refrigerator, even the creak of the floorboards as Michael shifted his weight. Then his shoulders slumped. His eyes darted to the floor, then back to me. For just a moment, I saw the boy again. The boy who used to run to me after scraping his knee, the boy who asked me once if I thought he'd ever be good enough. But the boy was gone as quickly as he appeared. Fine, he muttered, his tone clipped, cold. If that's how you want it, don't bother showing up. Don't bother calling. As far as I'm concerned, you're the one who walked away. I didn't flinch. So be it. He turned, storming toward the door. His shoes clicked against the hardwood, loud in the stillness. He yanked it open, the hinges groaning, and for a second, I thought he might look back. He didn't. The door slammed, rattling the picture frames on the wall. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway, the echo of his presence lingering. Part of me wanted to collapse, to cry, to call him back. But another part of me, the stronger part, felt something else. Relief. I poured myself another bourbon and sat back down. My hand trembled slightly as I lifted the glass, but not from weakness. From release. Because for the first time in my life, I hadn't caved. That night, the house was quieter than usual. Quieter, but not empty. For once, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. The wedding day came and went, and I wasn't there. I didn't know the exact time of the ceremony, though part of me imagined it was set for early evening, the golden hour when everything looked softer, more forgiving. I pictured the flowers arranged, the guests seated in neat rows, the string quartet playing. And then I imagined what happened when the cracks started to show. Because by then, the fallout had already begun. 2 days before, the venue had called Michael to say the deposit hadn't cleared. The caterer followed shortly after, pulling out without payment. Claire's parents tried to step in, but even their money couldn't salvage everything on such short notice. Rumors spread fast in their polished little circles, and suddenly what was meant to be a perfect show became a spectacle of whispers. I didn't need to see it. I could feel it in the silence of my phone. No calls, no messages, no last-minute pleas. Just a void where desperation had once buzzed. On the morning of the wedding, I woke early. The sun streamed through the curtains, warm and bright. I brewed my coffee, buttered my toast, and sat at the kitchen table with the newspaper. Ordinary. Steady. For the first time in years, I felt no weight pressing on my shoulders. No obligation. No guilt. just a quiet acceptance that I had done what I needed to do. Still, the hours ticked by, and I couldn't help but wonder. Wonder if Michael stood at the altar, scanning the crowd, noticing the empty chair where his father should have been. Wonder if Claire's parents whispered sharp words behind their smiles. Wonder if, even for a second, he regretted the email he sent me. By late afternoon, I decided to take a drive. Not anywhere in particular, just out. I rolled down the windows, let the autumn air fill the car. The leaves were starting to turn, gold and rust and deep red, and the world smelled faintly of wood smoke. Life was still moving, unchanged by one ruined wedding. I ended up at the lake on the edge of town. It was quiet there, only a few fishermen dotting the shore, their lines cutting through the still water. I sat on a bench, watching the ripples spread outward, endless and patient. For a moment I thought about Anna. She would have known what to say, how to soften Michael's edges without losing herself. She always had that gift. I whispered to the wind, as though she could hear me. I finally stood my ground. The breeze stirred, carrying the scent of pine. By the time I got home, the sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. I parked in the driveway, turned off the engine, and sat in the silence. My phone buzzed once, a single notification. I almost didn't look, but curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't Michael. It was a message from an old colleague, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Thomas, saw your son's wedding was cancelled last minute. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen for a long while. The world had noticed, it seemed. But for once, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I typed back simply, "I'm fine. Better than I've been in a long time." That night, I made myself a proper dinner. Steak, potatoes, a glass of red wine. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. It wasn't celebration exactly. It was acknowledgement. A quiet toast to the man I was becoming. Because here's the truth, revenge isn't always loud. It isn't always slamming doors or fiery speeches. Sometimes revenge is silence. Sometimes it's refusing to bend. Sometimes it's watching the people who thought they could discard you stumble under the weight of their own choices. Michael never called. Not that night, not the next day, not in the weeks that followed. The distance between us stretched, wide and unforgiving. And yes, it hurt. There's no denying that. But it was a clean hurt, not the festering kind I'd carried for years. I filled my days with things that mattered. Volunteering at the library. Walking the trails near the lake. Joining a small group at the community center where men my age gathered to play cards, tell stories, laugh. I rediscovered parts of myself I thought were gone. One evening months later, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text. A letter, the kind you can hold in your hands. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. I don't know where to start. The wedding was a disaster. Claire and I are not together anymore. I don't blame you, but I don't understand you either. Maybe someday I will. Michael. I read it twice, then set it down. My chest ached, but not in the same way it once had. He was reaching out, but not with entitlement. Not with demands. With honesty. That was more than I had hoped for. I didn't rush to reply. I let the letter sit on the table for days, weeks even. Because this wasn't about his timeline anymore. It was about mine. And when I finally did write back, it was simple. "Michael, I'll always be your father. My door is open when you're ready to walk through it with respect. Until then, take care of yourself. Dad." I mailed it, and I didn't wait for an answer. Because for once, I didn't need one. That night, I stood on the porch, looking out at the quiet street. The air was cool, the stars scattered bright across the sky. I breathed deep, steady. Revenge hadn't come from ruining his wedding, though that had happened. Revenge had come from reclaiming my dignity. From standing tall in the face of rejection. From showing my son and myself that I was worth more than a chair left empty. And in that silence, I found peace. If this story resonated with you, share it, comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one you finally give to yourself.